right, good morning, everybody. This is Michael Vaughn from Ironside, and we're doing a Take 30 on the Power BI new features that have been released in the last few months. Some of these actually are in preview mode and will be released fully by the end of the year. So just to kind of quickly go over our agenda here. Again, Ironside, we deliver these Take 30s. Again, they're 30 minutes only. They're every week we have different ones, and we'll go over the agenda there. And as a Microsoft Gold partner now, we have actually visibility in some additional content that's coming out, in preview mode down the road too. So we're going to go over some of the new things that are coming out that I think that are very important for a Power BI implementation. I think are great to know, and some things again are already available. So today we're going to talk about deployment pipelines, which I think is a major improvement for the software. We'll go over the Microsoft Team integrations. Again, a lot of companies have Microsoft Teams, and now with the integration of Power BI in the last couple of weeks, that's very convenient and very powerful. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Power BI Lineage and the new AI feature called Smart Narratives. So just again, just to recap, we are doing we conduct these Take 30s. Again, they're 30 minutes, little sessions on different tool sets, and then this is our upcoming agenda. So I believe if you've already signed up for the Power BI, you'll also get a reminder for these for these classes here, for these Take 30. So again, next week we've got a Take 30 on AWS, how to leverage AWS, and then the 29th we have one on the ML algorithm. All right, so who I am. I'm Michael Vollmer. I'm a senior consultant with Ironside. I've been working with Power BI for many years now. I've been working with Cognos and working with Tableau. So, I've touched everything. So I know these tools very well, and I know that what features I think are important to people, especially, from a BI implementation and from an organizational standpoint, what actually is relevant. So that's kind of my goal today, is to kind of go over what I believe are some of the new features that everybody should learn and should be aware of. So additionally, we have a link here called Here to Help from Ironside. So if you send us an email to this email address, if you have any questions, and it could be about this presentation, it could be obviously about additional information beyond Power BI. But again, that's kind of our goal here, is to kind of provide this information during this crazy year, to provide this, some additional help to our customers as needed, right? So again, it's here to help at ironside.com, ironsidegroup.com. All right, so let's get into the presentation. Right off the bat, one of the most important features that everybody should be using going forward is deployment pipelines. So what deployment pipelines is basically a lifecycle management tool. So now you can create a development, test, and a production environment in Power BI. So it doesn't require you to have additional licensing. Like, you don't have to have another Power BI environment. You can use your existing licensing in Power BI, right? And so the way that works is there's 3 environments that you can set up. And these are actually technically workspaces, right? So you'll have a development workspace, a test workspace, and obviously your production workspace. Now, additionally, you can set up a pipeline, multiple pipelines. So a pipeline itself is just more geared towards content. So you could have one for, let's finance or HR or whatever it is application that you want to deliver. So you technically can have multiple development, test, and production environments, right? So again, kind of what Power BI recommends, or Microsoft recommends, is that in your development environment, you're building, you're designing, you're testing. It's a limited group of users, right? And then your QA environment or your test environment is where you're going to provide the preview app. And they recommend you do an app. You publish your content as an app to a small test group, right? And then your production is going to be your final delivery to the general population, right? And again, each environment is a workspace. Some of the benefits here, again, it's just improved productivity. It's faster content delivery, and obviously it's going to reduce a lot of manual work. So prior to this, if you had if you had an environment that you wanted to do some development and test before you released, you actually had to do a lot of manual work, renaming of data sets, renaming of reports, so that you could test these things before you moved it over, right? So now this is all done for you with the pipelines tool set. So a couple things you need to know. One, basically Power BI will manage the copying of the content from each stage. So stage being prod, dev, etc. Right? The metadata of the reports, data sets, works, dashboards, whatever it may be, is copied for you or deployed for you from one environment to another. The data itself is not copied, so there's no data. When you deploy a data set, the actual data will not be copied for you. So that allows you to create, which we'll talk about, that allows you to connect your test environment to a test database, your production environment to a production database, etc. Right? A couple of things that you need to know: the user that is doing the deployment or that is managing the pipeline, which again will probably be very limited to begin with. For the person that's actually controlling the migration, you have to be a pro user, and the source and the target has to have premium capacity, right? So premium capacity is a caveat to this whole thing. So just a quick view of what the deployment pipeline looks like. So we are actually in Power BI service, right? So this is the web interface. This actually is a workspace. I've cut off the menu here, but you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So this one's called documentation demo. And so there's our development environment, which again is a workspace, right? I can see the content that's there. So I can see I have 5 data sets, reports, etc. Additionally, when I'm moving to test, I can see what's new, what's net new, and what currently exists. So again, these things it calls it out and shows you exactly what the differences is between the two environments, right? And so simply enough is you deploy to test, right? You can't deploy directly from test to prod. You have to go through the process. So again, you hit deploy, and it actually moves the content for you, and it'll tell you if there's any conflict, right? So in this case, we can see that we're going to put a new data set out there called sales analysis drill down, which does not exist currently in test. Okay. Then once it's deployed to test, again, you notice that there's the menu for Power BI service, right? You can now see the content that's there and that's available, and you can see what's net new, and again, it shows you a similar thing to production. And it also provides you a summary of what's the comparison is between the two, right? All right, so how do you create a deployment pipeline? Simple enough. Again, if it's a premium capacity workspace, there will be an icon that says create a deployment pipeline. It's got a little rocket. That may change, but that's what it looks like on my end. You can click that at the top, or additionally, there will be a menu link next to all the workspaces, just like everything else. You can click on the deployment pipelines, and that will open up the interface to create a deployment pipeline. So here's a little animation for you to show you how one's created. So again, you create click the icon to create a deployment pipeline. You give it a name, and then here you actually are going to assign workspaces to the different environments, right? And so by default, you can see it. We'll go through one more time. But when you add it, when you added a workspace to it, a pipeline, it actually does give it a label, so you know this is part of your deployment pipeline, right? So again, you give it a name, create your deployment pipeline, and you select the workspaces for the different environments, and then it automatically shows you what's available, right? So high-level steps is, again, you create the deployment pipeline itself. So again, you can have as many as you want. And then through the wizard itself, you'll actually assign the workspaces to each deployment or each piece of the pipeline, be it prod, test, or dev, right? And then it deploys to an empty stage. So if you have a target, your test environment, for example, would potentially be an empty stage, and then it would move the content for you to each one, right? Now, again, it does not copy the actual physical data in the data set, from workspace to workspace. And so what it does, it moves the metadata over, and you still are responsible for refreshing that data set. And the reason that is, again, is it allows you to connect your dev environment to a dev dev database or worksheets or whatever it may be, and then your test to a test and queue and prod to prod, right? And the way that works high level is, if you're familiar with Power Query inside of the desktop, you can actually define parameters in the Power Query editor in Power BI desktop, and you use those parameters basically to change or override the connection string for either the database or file location for an Excel file, or etc., right? So again, you set those parameters up, and then you create something that's called a dataset rule. So each environment would have a dataset rule, which allows you to map these parameters to a database connection or whatever it may be, right? And then you compare and deploy your content from one stage to another. And Power BI takes care of this all for you and tells you, again, any conflict or any differences between the environments. All right.
Michael, there was a quick question that came in. I wanted to see if we could ask it before we move on. This is John. So somebody asked, can I migrate security role assignments with the pipelines, or is that something I need to set up separately in each workspace?
It's a good question. I'm not 100% sure of that. I think the security roles potentially would go with the workspace because it's part of the metadata, right? So again, it moves the metadata itself. It doesn't move the data. So if it's built in, the row level security is built into your data set, and that would come over. Now, if you have folder level security, things like that in the workspace, which again, it's by workspace, so that would not, because that would be by each individual. You'd have a dev workspace, a prod workspace, and QA.
And someone's asking a very similar question about, will it work across different tenants?
No, I don't know. I have actually not seen any questions about the tenants itself. I believe if you can see the tenants, right? Because as long as you can see the workspaces, right? At the end of the day, then yes, it would, right? So the question is if you have access to those different tenants, those different workspaces, as long as you can see that, whoever the user that is actually moving content from one to the other workspace, as long as you can see those workspaces and say like potentially copy a report from one to another, then you should be able to also leverage this. I don't know that 100%. I'd actually have to look into that, because I have not seen any references around the tenants itself. But again, it's not magic. I mean, it is copying from workspace to another. So I'd assume if you can do that with a normal user, then you should be able to do that with deployment pipelines.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Some good questions, actually, something for me to follow up on. And again, one last thing here, and this isn't necessarily in my notes here, but when you go to production, the best practice or the right recommendation would be when your actual production environment should be deployed as apps, right? So generally speaking, you can obviously leverage workspaces and people can consume content from a workspace, but the best practice is that move to a workspace and then move to an app, right? So the app itself kind of insulates the changes from the users. And so prior to this, you would create apps for individual users, and then if you change reports in a workspace, then they wouldn't necessarily see those changes until you actually updated the app itself. So this kind of adds on to that. But again, you'd want to leverage apps. The benefit of using this over the current process is that if you made a change to the data set, even if it was already in an app, the data set in the app would automatically be updated, right? So there wasn't any way to insulate that from the users. This actually gives you a process because they're actually in physical different workspaces. Now you can make data set changes, right? Which is probably the biggest change you worry about, right? And you can now test and see what reports get broken before you move to prod. You can, additionally, you can move actually backwards. So if you have stuff in prod and you want to refresh dev or test with those reports, you can actually go backwards with it. So you might take all your production reports, especially if you have a data set change, and move it back to test or QA. And then that way you're testing your new data set against those. It also works with workflows. So any artifact that's actually in Power BI workspace, so a data flow, dashboards, or potentially are in reports too, right? All right, so the other new feature that has recently come out, and I believe, I don't know if it's still in preview mode, if it's generally available. It will be any day now. If it's not, is the integration with Microsoft Teams. At first, it seems kind of minor, but once you see the screenshots and some of the animations here, you'll actually see that it's actually quite powerful. So now with Power BI, you can actually link Power BI and make it native to Microsoft Teams, right? So again, this is a team screenshot, and you can see there's a channel for Power BI, right? And in the future, which we won't cover here, but there is a data set discovery experience, so it'll allow them to find data sets and build reports all without leaving the actual team interface, right? So the cool thing, and one of the most important things, is you're actually doing your collaborations inside of Teams, right? And it's integrated with Power BI. So you can chat with individual people, send them links to that report, or have a group conversation while you're all looking at the same report to explain what's going on. Okay, and again, there's the icon. So again, what this looks like in Teams is if you don't already have it, you will click the 3 dots down here to add a new channel into Teams, and then you'll search for Power BI, and you'll add the channel for Power BI. Now, globally, you can add this to individual groups or users from an admin standpoint, and you just simply need to use the Teams Admin Center. I don't have any screenshots of that. I actually don't have it installed, but you can push this out again by just the people that are consuming Power BI, right? So you can control some of that, right? All right, so here's a little screenshot of what it looks like in Teams. So again, we're inside of Teams. So somebody sends you a link to a Power BI report. Again, you never leave Teams itself, right? You can see the complete interface of the report and the content, right? Somebody drills down, they do some analysis on it, and now they want to share that with somebody. You know, they want to send some feedback to, let's say, Alex, right? And notice that this exact view, so whatever she drilled down on, whatever slices, whatever filters, etc., when you share that with somebody, it actually includes that. So they're going to see the exact same screen. So again, there's Power BI Home, so they can actually launch and actually look at the reports themselves in Power BI, or they can take on a link that somebody sends them. Okay, so moving on, the other thing you can do is you can search, right? So inside of Teams, simple enough is you'll need to add the Power BI in the search bar, and then you type in the name of the report, and it's now searching Power BI itself, right? So additionally, you can have chats in your channel. So if you want to send somebody a link to a report, you can, again, simply enough, as you start a new channel or starting a new chat itself, there's a Power BI icon down at the bottom, which allows you to insert the link to the report itself. So you don't actually have to open it first. You can find it, send it, etc., right? So you start a new conversation with a group of people, click the icon at the bottom, and it opens up Power BI to search or add whatever reports you want, and then you simply send it on. Okay. And then from a group chat standpoint, again, similar to what we saw earlier, but you start a group chat where you send it to a team of people, and you can start a group chat which they all have the link and they can see exactly what you're looking at the same time, right? So from a collaboration standpoint, that's very powerful. And again, it's free, it's out of the box, there's no special licensing. The only caveat would be, again, that the individual user would need access to that workspace, that report or app, and they would also obviously need to have Pro, you know, or if it's a premium capacity workspace, then that would work too. So licensing standpoint is just the same as they would consume it from Power BI services. But again, the actual integration of the team is free itself. All right, so the other feature that I want to go over is the Power BI Lineage. So Power BI Lineage has been around for a little bit now, for a few months. What this does, it actually is very important from an admin standpoint, and it actually shows you the connections of all the artifacts in your workspace. So be a data set to a report, to a dashboard, etc. And it simply shows you how they're all connected, right? So if you have a dashboard, for example, and you have some tiles that aren't being updated, you can't figure out what reports they came from or what source of data they came from, the lineage itself will actually provide that information to you, right? So you can easily identify what's stagnant and kick off a refresh from the actual lineage screen itself, right? And again, one of the cool features we'll see here again is before you publish a new data set from Power BI Desktop, it'll actually provide you with information of that publish impact. So what workspaces are affected, what data sets are affected, things like that. So if we look at, again, this is an actual workspace itself. So if we look at an example of a lineage view, you can see the physical data source. So this, in this case, is an Excel file that feeds into a data set called financial data set, which then links to two other reports, right? And the different data set, different set of files, right? So again, you can get a holistic view of your environment. Additionally, these little icons, which we'll see in a little bit, provide you additional contact information around whatever it is you're looking at, be it a data source or an actual data set. You can refresh the data sets from here. It shows you when it was last refreshed, right? And you can see the reports that it's connected to, and you can actually open those reports. So similar in context with the deployment pipeline, you might want to use a lineage view to see what else is being affected by your deployment from one environment to another, right? All right, so how do you open Lineage? It's simple enough. If you're in a workspace, when you're looking at it, you'll change the drop down for view, and you'll switch it from list, which shows you the list of reports or data sets, and you'll switch it over to the Lineage. Now it says preview because the screenshot's a little bit old, but technically this is now generally available to everybody. So again, you'll see when you click on it, you'll see a holistic view of your environment. So if you look at the top screen here, so when you click on, let's say, the financial samples data set, which comes from an Excel file, when I click the little icon that shows me more detail, I can actually see the physical location of that file, right? So that's great as far as when you have physical files or even databases, right? You don't, you see the name of it, you don't know where the data is actually coming from, and you might have multiple files feeding into a data set that'll now provide all that information to you. And you can also see if it's connected to a data set, or sorry, a data gateway, if it's on-prem. In this case, I did not have one set up, but and again, it shows you the full path. So if you click on the data set itself, when you click on the data set, it'll give you context information as to what's in that data set. So the number of tables and the columns and things like that. Right. And again, you can see who it was configured by, who owns it, and then the last time that it was refreshed. Additionally, you can do an impact analysis. So if you click a little impact analysis icon, it'll actually show you the number of workspaces, reports, dashboards, etc., that this data set itself is connected to. So again, if you have a shared data set that's across multiple workspaces, it'll show you that. In this case, we have 5 workspaces, and you can see them listed here on what the data set's connected to. So that's very powerful because up until now, it was kind of difficult if you have shared data sets, right, to see all the locations that it's currently being used, right? You can actually see the number of views, how popular basically this dashboard, being used, the number of users, the number of views, or number of people have access to this data set, right, or by workspace. Additionally, you can notify the contacts. So if you know that you're going to make a major change, it's going to break potentially some reports or whatever it may be, a new calculation change, you can, from this interface, you can click notify contacts, and you can actually send them an email. And it would actually, again, if it's part of Active Directory, would send them an email and they would potentially be notified of your changes. And again, I could see this being used along with the deployment pipelines. Once you identified some changes you're going to make, you would use this. I think they would coincide with that, especially when you go to production. So from Power BI Desktop, before you publish the data set, this should be already available. I saw it the other day, but before you publish the data set, if it already exists, it'll actually give you a summary of the impact itself. So what workspaces and reports are going to be changed or be affected by your change. And it may not actually affect them at all, but it does tell you what's connected to that data set. And additionally, you can click the link in Power BI Desktop to view impact, which will spawn the web browser, and you'll be able to look at the Lineage view. All right, our last topic here, since we're closing in at the bottom of the hour, is the smart narratives. This is fairly new. I think it's generally available by the end of the year. It's in preview mode now, so you'll have to actually physically enable that in desktop. But it's a new visualization that'll come out of the box. And what a smart narrative does for you is it basically uses the AI engine of Power BI, and it scans your data, whatever is on your dashboard or report on that page, and it provides you additional context information. So outliers, things like that may be contributing to the data that you're seeing, right? So again, it provides additional context information. And if you notice, if you're familiar with Q&A, you'll notice these links that are available on the screen. So those links allow you to drill in and view more additional information or potentially filter on the context onto the dashboard itself. So if we look at this, if you're looking at a specific chart, you can actually do a narrative on the chart itself. And so it goes kind of quick, so we'll look at it slowly here in a second. But if you click summarize on a chart, it'll actually spawn the smart narrative screen. And if you look at it, you can kind of get a little detail, and it'll tell you why that chart is what it is. It shows you more context around the outliers or the things that are contributing to that data set. So like for the inventory, it might key in on a couple warehouses that are causing your inventory levels to be what they are, right? Or sales that may key in certain customers or certain products that are really contributing to your loss in sales or a gain in sales, right? So again, this is a smart narrative. So you have some control over this. You can actually add a little bit more context to it. But again, it's using sort of that Q&A interface where it kind of allows you to read the context and click on the links to provide more information. And so here you can actually add and customize your narrative. So for example, if I wanted to add additional context around returned items, I can do that, and I can build in a calculation, for example, around returns, right? And so now when somebody looks at a smart narrative, additionally context or information is around that calculation, right? As you click on things, and you click on different charts, which we'll see here in the next one, it does actually filter, and it is dynamically linked to the charts themselves. So just like every other interaction, if you click on a slice of a pie chart or the data point, it's going to automatically filter the smart narrative, right? So it's all interactive. So again, if I click on one of the links in the smart narrative, that'll actually open up a chart or open up additional context information around. All right, and then again, just to show you that as you're looking at a specific chart, whatever it may be, if you drill down on that chart or whatever the data is visible on that screen, that's what the narrative itself is going to be about, right? So the narrative, again, it's going to be context sensitive to whatever it is that's visible on the screen at the time. So in this case, we just have one chart. We can see that as we click through things, it's actually changing the chart, changing the narrative. So you know, for different pipelines or different products, the narrative may be totally different, right? All right, so that's our 30 minutes. You know, I know we powered through that, but is there additional any questions that anybody has right now that we can answer through this? And I know we went through a lot of this stuff pretty quickly, but again, I want to be cognizant of your time. Nope. All right, John. Any questions on your end? Do you see any questions? I can't see the chat window.
Yeah, no, I'm not able to see any new questions, but I think you covered a lot here. So.
Right. Yeah, we covered a lot in 30 minutes. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, short and sweet, but some great information. This is being recorded, so you can go back and review it later. The presentation will be available on our website shortly. So again, some new features to dig into. There's a lot more detail around these that we couldn't cover in 30 minutes, obviously. So definitely some more information there. If you have questions about these, you want additional content, feel free to send us an email, here-to-help@ironsidegroup.com, and we can provide more one-on-one, Q&A type of thing, right? So thanks everyone for attending. I appreciate it. And that concludes our webinar today.